Good morning. I'm Susannah Morgan. I'm the CEO of Oregon Food Bank. I'm delighted to announce that there are more than 100 people from food banks, food pantries, meal sites, and other concerned citizens from around the state here at the Capitol today, meeting with legislators for Oregon Hunger Response Day. Our purpose in being here today is to bring awareness to the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens who need to seek food assistance through the SNAP program or from their local food pantry or meal site in order to get their family through the month. And we need, as a society, as a community, to make sure that everyone has enough to eat in order to build a prosperous, healthy life. So that's what we're doing here today. We have a paper plate campaign, which is showed here. We solicited people who were receiving food assistance to tell us their own words, their own thoughts about the food assistance that they receive from the collaborative network of food banks and food pantries around the state. And I'd like to read out a couple just to get us started. Without the food pantry help, my family would go without food. It holds us over until the food stamps come. My kids would go hungry otherwise. Thank you so much for the food that I receive. I am 99 with a very limited income. The food helps so much. Without it, I don't know if I could make ends meet.
Hello, my name is Ryan McCambridge. I'm the Food Share Program Coordinator at Lynn Benton Food Share and also serve as the chair of the Oregon Food Bank Network. What we're here today to also do, besides bring awareness, is ask the legislature to strengthen the Oregon Hunger Response Fund. Currently, we're in the process of going to legislators and asking for their support to increase that fund by $375,000 per year over the next 2 years. And what that fund has done in the past is it has leveraged more than $2 million in local funding, 56,000 volunteer hours, and 500,000 in matched and in-kind donations for food banks. And that's in the last biennium that it achieved that. And I also would like to read a couple of plates for you for the impact that this funding has done and the folks that it affects. So, my husband and I work full-time jobs. The cost of living is so high where we live that it is hard to make ends meet. The food boxes we receive help immensely. Also, I'm currently unemployed. I've been looking for work going on 2 years. I worked at Hewlett-Packard for 25 years. If it wasn't for this food pantry, I would go without food. I've gone from middle class to poverty level in 2 years. We need more help in the community for those of us that need it.
Hi, I'm Beverly Hughes, the Director of Food for Lane County. In Lane County, 1 in 3 people is eligible for food assistance. We benefit from the Oregon Hunger Response Fund, and we utilize those dollars to build our capacity. We were able to rescue over 1 million pounds of food from our community last year, with these funds helping us hire an employee to go out and rescue food from grocery stores, farmers, and also having food drives to bring more perishable food and canned food into our warehouse. I also have several plates to read you. I just recently lost my job. Without the help, my family would also lose our home. Thank you for all your help. Someone in Oak Ridge. It helps make things possible to deal with in these trying times. Living payday to payday in this economy just seems so normal these days. It's nice to have some place to turn to. I am 54 years old, disabled woman. My husband of 30 years died 3 years ago. Thank God for the food bank. Without them, I can't imagine what my life would be like. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Murray, Food Bank and Energy Assistance Manager at Neighbor Impact in Central Oregon, Redmond. We leverage the dollars that we get from the state through the Oregon Hunger Response Fund to help us generate volunteers, to augment our staff at Neighbor Impact. Last year we generated over 2,500 volunteer hours, so basically we have more than one full-time staff person comes through that program. We also use it to bring in perishable foods, to go out and work with our stores to come up with donations for us, and we brought in over 1 million pounds through our Fresh Alliance grocery store recovery program last year, that's the equivalent of about 25 semi-loads or a semi-load of food extra every 2 weeks into our warehouse that's locally produced in our area. I have a couple plates here. These are both from the coast, one from the Lincoln City area and one from North Coast. This program helps me every day in a good way. I can count on it when it feels like I have nothing to count on. The recession has made it to where you have to decide whether to pay bills, buy medicine, or food. If it wasn't for the food bank, many a meal might not be as filling as it is with the food we received here. Thank you.
I assume you're open to questions.
Absolutely.
We've heard some of the stories, but when you explain, I have covered this issue on and off for a decade or more, and the demand seems to persist during quote-unquote good times and certainly bad. So why has this demand persisted at such a high level?
I'll answer that one, in as much as there is an answer, Peter. People are hungry because they don't have enough money for food. It's kind of an obvious answer. So the challenge to ending hunger is a challenge we have as a society, and saying that we believe that everyone has a right to work at a fulfilling living wage job and be able to support their families, and that in retirement there will be enough assistance available for them to be able to take care of their families without looking for the outside. So hunger is this very complex issue that is jobs, living wage jobs, it's availability and affordability of healthcare, it's availability and affordability of housing, all of these pieces pulled together. So the reason that we have grown and done more and gotten larger and are reaching more people, but still not ended the problem, is because it is one tough nut to crack. What I will also say is the Oregon Food Bank and the collaborative Oregon Food Bank Network are absolutely committed to keeping working on this until we crack that nut.
Technical question, how much is, or at least in the current biennium, is the hunger fund?
It's about 2.2 million, so we're asking for an increase to 3 million for the next biennium, or an annual increase of $375,000.
And so how does that work? Is the money in that 2.2 million distributed to various food banks around the state?
That's right.
Cash basis?
So there are 20 regional food banks that all meet quarterly and make decisions collaboratively, support each other. The money is more or less split evenly between the 20 food banks. Some food banks use it to purchase food, and as you heard, some food banks use it to build capacity to be able to leverage other local donations or otherwise expand their ability to accept food. I don't have to take over here, guys. You can jump in.
What are your early indications at this point? I mean, that you'll get the additional funding?
We have very strong support from the Oregon legislature, and we believe that we have been telling our story and been explaining to folks why this is such a critical need. A relatively small investment on the state level causes such a huge benefit from that we can leverage with private dollars, that I believe that the Oregon legislature will step up and give us this additional help we need to meet the need of hungry Oregonians.
And could you characterize the level of funding, like say over the past 3 or 4 biennia? I mean, has that 2.2 been flat for a while? Have you gotten increases relatively recently?
It has been increasing steadily, but increasing at minor amounts, however we say that, on the hundreds of thousands of dollars level, not in the tens of millions of dollars level.
What would you be able to do with an extra $800,000 that can't be done now?
So just flat out, $800,000 would allow us to leverage if we just used it straight out for food purchase, would allow us to leverage at least another additional 3 million meals per year, depending on how it is used at the different regional food banks. Some regional food banks can leverage that even further, so that it might turn into 5 or 6 million additional meals that we were able to distribute.
How much of your guys' budgets come from state assistance?
On average, across the 20 regional food banks, 80% of our budgets are raised locally from the local private sector, individuals and corporations and local organizations. We do supplement that with this Oregon Hunger Response Fund and some USDA funds that flow through the state, but the 4 out of every $5 are raised locally.
Technical question, $1 buys how much in food these days? I know the figure has been adjusted over the years because food.
Three meals, 4 pounds.
4 pounds. Would you say that you're meeting the needs of the communities you serve, or are you running out of food every month?
We have never given away less food than we have collected. So the entire food banking network has never reached the point in which we have collected more food than is needed by the community. I think we would all agree that before the recession we were closing that gap. We were making good progress in getting closer to where the need was, and then the recession hit. And even though we continue to do more, the need has grown so much more exponentially.
What portion would you say, I guess this probably varies through your regional networks, but what portion comes from this sort of recovered food from grocery stores and restaurants, that sort of thing?
Network-wide, more than 50% of the food is locally donated food. Purchased food was running about 20%. Then their USDA food is 15% or so, filled in the cracks by community donations. You want to talk about what it is in Eugene?
In Lane County, we'll distribute 8 million pounds this year and 1 million. Oh, sorry. This is Beverly Hughes. In Lane County, we will distribute approximately 8 million pounds of this food, and of the 8 million, 1 million will be rescued from our community.
In Central Oregon, about 40% of the food that we distribute, 2.5 million pounds, is the 1 million pounds that we get from our local grocery stores. So it makes a huge difference. It's not just the amount; it's the variety of the food. It's primarily perishable food, so it's food that we can't necessarily bring in from the outside. Dairy products, produce, meat products that are fresh and ready to go for people. So it really does complement the food we get from Oregon Food Bank.
And I will just add that Oregon Food Bank collects food in excess from particular regions. So for instance, we get donations of truckloads of apples and pears coming out of the Hood River and the Dalles region that are then distributed to the 20 regional food banks around the state. We get donations of potatoes and onions coming out of Southeast Oregon that get distributed around the state, which is why the statewide local donation number is higher.
I just want to add, because we don't use a cookie-cutter approach to feed people, depending on the population we're trying to feed, they could be housed or unhoused, seniors, children, families. So by rescuing food from the grocery stores, we're bringing in food, some of it is like deli food or single-serving food. So for all the homeless populations we're trying to serve who don't have homes, it's a wonderful source of variety for us to have different kinds of food to distribute.
What's been the trend with demand? Has it dropped off some since the height of the recession?
I wish. The reality is that we are still seeing increases every year in the number of people seeking food assistance. This year it looks like it's trending at 4%, but if you add back to when the recession hit, the entire 20 regional food banks and the 900 food pantries, meal sites that we serve are serving more than 50% more people than we were in 2007.
Farmers help ease food hunger?
we adore, cannot express how much we absolutely love donations of local fresh produce. It is one of the best ways that we can increase the nutritional quality of food that we distribute, and it is one of the most popular foods for low-income people to receive because it tends to be expensive per calorie, so it's something that they can't prioritize with limited funds. So farmers who are finding that they have excess more than they're going to sell, if they're finding that they might be leaving food in the ground because they can't get it harvested, we really strongly urge them to contact Oregon Food Bank. We have lots of options on how to work with them.
What about processed food efforts by farmers, such as Farmers Ending Hunger and some of those efforts, the United efforts? Are those helping?
We work very closely with Farmers Ending Hunger. One of my staff sits on the board of Farmers Ending Hunger. It's a collaborative effort to try and solve some of the logistical problems of that food donation opportunity.
Bushels for Betsy. That one.
I have not heard of bushels for Betsy, but I am only just about to hit my 6-month mark in Oregon. If you'd like me to tell you about Alaska, I will give you all that detail.
I'd like to add, in Lane County, we found ourselves lacking variety and lacking protein last year, so we went to our farmers and talked to them and asked them to please help us feed our own community. So in Lane County, we had a farmer in Junction City switch over to lentils and barley for the food bank. He also asked his surrounding 6 neighbors to switch from grass seed to lentils and barley. Oregon Food Bank also participated in this. We were able to bring in a huge supply, which they're going for is this year also. We're now working with ranchers, cattle ranchers and sheep ranchers to see if we can't figure out ways to farm land that it's been made available to us to do this together as a community to help increase our plant protein supply.
Susannah, I believe your organization does an every other year survey of just giving a snapshot of who are the hungry, and
I'm betting it's in your packet right there, Peter.
I know you haven't been here long, but has that changed over the decade? It surprises some people to realize that actually a number of majorities recipients, I believe, are actually employed somewhere.
Yeah, and those numbers, since the recession, the numbers have been growing. We're seeing, I think we're now pushing 2/3 of families have someone in the household who is employed. So it is, the shift is moving towards more and more working poor families, with the continual challenge, of course, of those working poor families having children that are impacted by that, and the section of seniors who are living on a very limited income. Just a statistic that struck me coming to Oregon, there are 36,000 Oregonians who are receiving TANF funds, cash assistance. There are 800,000 Oregonians who are receiving food stamp SNAP assistance. Hunger is much, much larger and much more invisible.
You know, I missed a lot of this conference, I'm sorry, but I was trying to meet a deadline. But you know, I've heard in the past Oregon has a really high rate of hunger, but I've heard one of the reasons why is because you have the Oregon Food Bank has an active program getting people to participate in food stamps, and that's so our numbers are a little bit skewed. I've always wondered about that. Can you address that whole concept?
USDA does a survey, a phone survey every year called the USDA Household Food Security Report. This gives us national numbers, and it's a series of 18 questions that ask things like, did you do without food so someone in your household could eat? The food security rate for Oregon is running around 15% of folks who say that they worry about where their next meal is going to come from. At this point in time, that puts Oregon squarely in the middle of the pack. We didn't get better during the recession, but we didn't get worse. And there were many other states that got worse. So this is something that we are sort of proud of and ashamed of at the same time, that during the worst economic crisis of my lifetime, I'm 43, we were able to hold the line between the wonderful support of the state of Oregon and the charitable and private efforts of the food bank network. We were able to not have more people or a larger percentage of people sink into that quantity. That said, we have seen our numbers rise. So that's the number of people who are food insecure. The number of those who are seeking food assistance gets larger, right? So we're closing the gap of the people who need food assistance but aren't asking for it.
John, I know that, okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity.